30-minute introduction to RoseAnn. Well, you accomplished so much. RoseAnn, we had to give biographies, some of us. And she wrote all her involvements in the Tea Party, and now she's in, she and Terry have the conservative website, and they write wonderful, lengthy articles, and she's a published author of Guts, All Tied Up with Strings. She's been active in the pro-life movement and stuff. But I've got to say something, RoseAnn, you forgot to mention you're married and have kids, you have a child. No, that's part of it is, that's number one, I think, that a person lives a balanced life. Not that everybody has to be married, that's not my point. The point is, we got to be proud to mention that as well. You know, it's not easy being a parent today, or a spouse, let's be honest. She entered this, I'm sure, this campaign with trepidation, no? Because it's a great undertaking, especially, you know, when you're a woman, let's be honest. Today it's still a challenge to be a candidate on any level. She set her goals high in running for the New Jersey Assembly in the 24th District, and I like her banner here. She's a citizen representative, not a career politician. Boy, we should have more people like that. I don't think we meant to send them there for 30 or 40 years. And certainly we want them to have the benefits we have, not their special benefits. She also served as the chairwoman of the Sussex County Christian Women's Club, along with Reverend Dr. Gloria Harris, co-hosted a local TV radio show, The Truth or Consequences. So she's so gifted. I think I'm going to be quiet. Let her come up here and share with you what is in her heart, because these are serious times and we need serious candidates. Thank you. Come on up here. Thanks.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out. Last night, I have to say, I struggled a bit with what I was going to say today, and some of you know me, that's a pretty unusual position for me to be in. But I thought about what we were doing. We're here to celebrate the Constitution, and why is that important to us? And I couldn't help but think about the prophet Jeremiah, who was alive at the time Israel was going astray. And they were becoming secular, and they were becoming hedonistic, like we are today. And Jeremiah told them, you need to get back to your ancient paths. And I said, that's appropriate for us today. We need to get back to our ancient paths here in America from where we came. So I think it was important for us to celebrate and remember where we came from. This mic's a little high for me. Well, I knew what was in my heart and that I really wanted to share with you was just so much more about a political career. This has nothing to do with a career move. So let's get a couple of things out of the way first. One of the biggest things that I've run into is people saying, you're a spoiler. If you run third party, you're a spoiler. And my response to that is really pretty simple. Spoil what? And that's pretty much where I stand on that. The status quo, well, Ronald Reagan said, status quo, you know, is Latin for the mess we're in. And we sure are in a mess. Now, I know a lot of people here, and I know a lot of you have thought about a third party or even said, well, we need a third party. But if it doesn't start small someplace, where is it going to start? You see, we need a third party because we need a choice. And the choices we have sometimes for the people that are running in office, for me, just aren't acceptable. I remember when President Bush was running, I remember when President Obama was running, and he was running against John McCain. I wasn't thrilled with John McCain, but I did press that lever for John McCain. And it wasn't because I had confidence in him. It was because I was really voting against Obama. And that's so often the choice we have. we're not voting for the candidate, we're voting against another candidate. So if we're ever going to change that, it's got to start someplace. And better to start in a state race than a federal. So that's it. So somebody's got to be first, somebody's got to be out there doing it. So today, we are starting that, and hopefully we'll go forward with that movement. Well, I remember this country when government stood out of our way. Do you remember that? And we were free to pursue happiness. I mean, that's what our Declaration of Independence was all about. We are free to pursue happiness. What does that really mean? Government's supposed to provide an environment for you where you can do that. They're not supposed to tell you what that happiness is or define what it looks like or how you get there. They're just supposed to keep a level playing field. But today, we look at the problems we have that government's created, and what do? We expect government to solve the problems that government has created. That's just not going to happen. We have to start thinking different. Now, a lot of people have said to me, what makes you think that you can do better than the incumbents? And I want to answer that question. Why do you think you should vote for me? Well, I have to tell you something, and I want you to think about this logically. If you want to change Trenton, there's only one way you're going to do it. You have to change the people you send there. See, Trenton doesn't rule our lives. It's not the geography, it's not the building. It's the people we send to occupy those buildings. And if we really do want to change that, we have to start paying attention to whom we vote for. See, too often we can send good-intentioned people there, but there's one problem. They've been so indoctrinated in doing things the way they've been taught to do things, and they have this philosophy. I call it the play along to get along philosophy. And it permeates everything in Trenton. And it's you give me this, I'll give you that. And the problem with that is you can have a good bill that you're sponsoring and presenting, and by the time everybody puts their hands in it, it's barely recognizable and probably not worth the paper it's printed on. We need to get out of that. But what makes me think I can do different than that? Well, first of all, we got tea parties. I'll tell you, New Jersey's in a fairly unique position because our tea parties are networked throughout the whole state. So we have to take a tip from what President Reagan did. Now, he did a couple of things that really spoke to me. And one of the things that he did, when Congress was not going along with what he thought was right, he brought it to the people. And the people supported what he was doing, and then Congress had to submit to the will of the people. That's what we need to do. And that's what the tea parties can do. And that's also what the People's Posse can do. And I'm going to play a little video about that in a little bit. I hope you get a kick out of it. So, let's see. Why are things wrong? We need people. You see, we don't have a democracy. A lot of people think we have a democracy. We don't have a pure democracy. We have a democratic republic where you get to choose your representatives, but a republic only works if the people you vote for have the capacity to think things through and have the courage to stand up for what's right. You're supposed to be able to do that with a republic, and you're supposed to pick people. Nothing bugged me more than when Bill Clinton was running for office, and I'd go to my local church, and I even heard from Christians there, well, you know what, his personal life aside, I think he can do a good job. That's not how a republic works. Integrity means a lot. They're going to be people that you send to office are going to be faced with a lot of decisions, things you know nothing about, things they know nothing about. And how could you trust them to make the right decision if they're not people of integrity? And it's an important part of a republic. We don't inherit our offices, we're elected to them. and we're supposed to go into office and do what's right. Well, Reagan, he was a true leader because he thought about things through. I always say, I've seen a lot of bills lately. One of them has to do with education that people are proposing. One of them has to do with swabbing your inside cheek and taking your DNA and sending it to a national database to tell if you're a sex offender or something of that nature. The problem is, you gotta think that through. Do you know that if that law passed, that if you're stopped for a simple traffic violation, they could take your DNA sample? Doesn't seem right to me. It seems like it's an abuse of the Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure. Now, Senator Dick LaRosa, who's back there, and one of my friends, he had actually sponsored Megan's Law, and Megan's Law already provides for, if you're a convicted felon, they take your DNA. Am I right, Dick? Right? So why are they proposing this legislation? You have to think things through. My philosophy about laws is first, do no harm. And that's something that our legislators need to take to heart. See. The people who are in office right now in the 24th District, including, I'm not running for the Senate, but including Senator Arrojo, have said many times to many people that they can't do anything in Trenton because they're in the minority. So I have to ask you, if by their own admission they say they can't get anything done, why should you vote for them? Maybe you're seeing something I don't, but to me, again, it doesn't make sense. But like my dad says, common sense isn't too common. What do I really want to do? What are some of my objectives if I should get elected? Well, first of all, there's Agenda 21. And we have a lot of literature back there, and it's so frightening and so upsetting that I couldn't possibly begin to tell you here what that's about. So I encourage you to get the information. People at the Constitution table have a lot of information on Agenda 21. The second thing I want to do is reform our courts. Because I'll tell you something, it doesn't matter what laws we pass, once they get before our tyrants in black robes, they do whatever it is they want to do. They've become a law unto themselves. And that's the first thing we have to straighten out. We have to let them know that they're accountable to us. And another thing I want to do is reform education. Our future depends on it. Our children are being dumbed down, they're being secularized, they're being eroticized, and a whole list of other things. And we just really need to give them the tools they need to go into the world and be productive human beings. So those are three of my objectives, and of course we need to bring jobs back to New Jersey. And how do we do that? We can do that very easily with incentive programs. We got to get the government out of our way. One of the things I don't believe in, and you'll be hearing a lot about, and it's part of that legislation that all sounds good, the Opportunity Scholarship Fund in school funding. I'll be speaking about that tomorrow at an event. Oh, don't we want to have a fund that we could send our money to the state and have a tax deduction, and then that money will be dispersed to the inner city schools? Well, it sounds good on the surface. First of all, you know, in education, New Jersey is number one in cost, that is, not in academics. And cities like Newark and Camden, they get a substantial amount of funds from our government, which is from us. And their graduation rate in Camden, it's under 20%. In Newark, it's under 40%. Why should we be sending more money to these schools? They pay, in Camden, it's $26,000 per student. Over here at Kittatinny, it's 16. At Veritas High School up here, it's 10. And those kids get a better education. It's just not a money issue. So why is it bad? Why do you say that's first do no harm? And what's wrong with this? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Because right now, our federal laws and our IRS rules tell you that you can donate to a public school, or you could donate to a nonprofit school if it's registered like that and get a tax deduction. Why do you need an OSA, as they call it, the scholarship fund, that tells you now what you have to do is send your money to the state and they'll disperse it to inner cities? You want to send your money to the inner city school, you can do that, and you could get a tax deduction. You don't need more legislation to do that. And once the government gets involved, then the argument's going to be, the law is you send us your money, we send it to the inner city schools. And let me tell you, it won't be long before they tell you, you cannot send it to a private school, and you cannot send it to the school of your choice. So again, think things through. That's what we need. It's not all this feel-good stuff that sounds good to the ears and actually is going to create more problems than it's going to solve. So that's what we need to do as a people. Those are 3 things that I'm committed to. Oops. You see what happens? When government starts doing things like we the people are supposed to do, it lets people off the hook. Government's supporting those schools in Newark. We don't have to roll up our sleeves and go in there. Let government do it. We don't have to create a charity for those women who are battered. We have a government program that does that. And I have to tell you, the one thing that running for a government position has taught me, and you're probably not going to want to hear this, government has exceeded its bounds because we have let them. We have let them. The church needs to rise up. Communities need to rise up. When a neighbor is in trouble, they should be able to turn to you for help. Reagan said that when he was running. I think the churches need to get more involved. And you know what? I was a lot younger in those days, and it sounded good. I didn't quite understand what he was talking about, to be honest with you. Now I understand. I was at a Board of Freeholders meeting this week, and they had all these people coming up and tell them what a wonderful job they were doing, giving all this money to this home for battered women and underprivileged children, and thought, that's great. Where's the church? Well, I'll tell you one thing. If those people were going to a church or to their neighbor, there would be accountability there. And we wouldn't be the mess we're in trying to provide for all these things. So, you want to change government? You got to step up, people. You have to step up. You have to stop making it okay for government to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. We have to take this country back, and if we wait much longer, we're going to lose this small window of opportunity we have. If you hear what's coming down the pike with Agenda 21, your hair will stand on end. I don't know how it got this far, and yet it has. We really do need to come together. People tell me, well, you don't support health care. What kind of a Christian are you? You know, don't you care about people who have less? Well, that's a silly question. Of course I do. But I'll tell you something else I believe as a Christian, and people say, oh, you know, you can't mix God with politics. You better mix God with politics. You better know the integrity and the values of the people you're electing, because otherwise you get what you get. And history has shown us what you get. But I'll tell you what I believe as a Christian. I believe I am my brother's keeper. How's that? And I also believe that in the work ethic, that if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. That doesn't mean we don't take care of widows and children, because we have a clear directive to do that. And it doesn't mean that we don't take in strangers and help those in need. It sure does. But we don't do that through our government. We do that through we the people. And that's something that's going to change. I can't do it for you. If you elect me, I'm gonna do my darndest to fight every step of the way to make sure government stays out of your way. And I have just Agenda 21. I've been told, and I haven't examined the numbers, but I've been told that we can cut our taxes by half. Mark, is that correct? You heard something about that, right? Adrian had made that claim?
Actually, with Agenda 21, we get rid of the illegal bonds that are funding Agenda 21. We can get rid of a lot of expenses.
Okay.
The parts of Agenda 21 that involve our school funding going to Newark and the rest of the state, that's where I support the Equal Education Amendment, which makes every child in this state equal. That means their funding included.
Senate majority, right?
What?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
We'll go through that too.
I'm the one who's standing behind Senator Doherty's office the last 5 years screaming and yelling and hollering about all this stuff.
Oh, yeah? Finally listened anyway.
So I guess this isn't your normal campaign speech, to say the least. Because most politicians will come in here and they'll tell you what they're going to do and how they're going to make your life better. But it just was on my heart that if I had the opportunity to stand before you, I really needed to tell you the only way we're going to make things better if we take responsibility for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our own children, and we have to step up to the plate. If we don't step up to the plate, the government's going to do that. And as we depend more on government, we lose more and more of our liberties. You see, at the beginning of this country, they understood something. They understood that our rights come from God and not from government. And if we want to keep it that way, you better start electing people who understand that and are willing to fight for those principles that we believe in. So I just want to thank everybody who's made this day possible. And I know we had a lot of events that were competing, and I've been told I didn't do a really good job in getting the word out, so I apologize. But we have a great program that's still in place, and I have my very dear friend and former co-host in R&R that's going to be singing for you. He's a man of many talents, and we have some more music and some nice fun things, and I hope you'll stay with us and hear a little bit about the Constitution Party. So I want to turn it back to Marty. Thank you.